The film begins in a quiet neighborhood, where a seasoned soldier named Ray Francis came back home after many years of duty. He had been dreaming of this day, to reunite with his sweetheart Kelly and start a fresh chapter in their lives together. In the soft glow of the park, amidst the gentle rustle of leaves, Ray couldn't wait any longer. He knelt down and asked Kelly to marry him, his heart full of joy and hope. At that time, the two of them were wrapped in a bubble of happiness, eager to set off and celebrate this magical moment together. But just as they were about to leave, their joy was interrupted by a couple of rowdy youngsters who started picking on Kelly, ruining their special moment. Ray's protective instincts kicked in immediately. He couldn't just stand by and watch Kelly being harassed. In a flurry of chaos and emotions, things spiraled out of control. Suddenly, a scuffle broke out, and before Ray knew it, one of the young men lay motionless on the ground, a victim of the sharp object that had somehow found its way into the confrontation. The following days were a whirlwind. Ray found himself standing in court, now a defendant in a serious case. Despite acting in defense of Kelly and himself, he was handed a hefty sentence. But a silver lining appeared, as his honest confession and show of remorse meant his sentence was reduced, granting him an earlier release. But fate had more trials in store for Ray. The young man who died was the son of a powerful government official named Harvey. Fueled by rage and grief, Harvey pulled strings behind the scenes, determined to seek revenge. With his deep pockets and influence, he asked his lawyer to bribe the head of the prison where Ray was serving time, orchestrating a dark plot to end Ray's life inside the prison walls. The next day, in the grim atmosphere of the prison, Ray quickly became a target. A mean-spirited warden named Rico just couldn't stand Ray's gutsy attitude from the moment he arrived. Rico seemed to be on a mission to make Ray's life miserable, finding any excuse to rough him up. But it wasn't just Rico. Ray found himself being hassled by other inmates too, especially a gang led by a guy named Mazin, who was quite influential within the prison walls. Things got pretty heated, but thankfully, another warden, Williams, stepped in just in time to break up the fight before it got too out of hand. As days turned into weeks, Ray found some solace working in the prison library. There he met David, an older inmate who also managed the library. This place became a bit of a sanctuary for Ray, despite the continuous taunts from Mazin's group. At that time, he managed to keep his cool, refusing to let them get under his skin. But then, Rico decided to ramp up his vendetta against Ray. He started rummaging through Ray's personal stuff, cruelly mishandling pictures of Kelly in a blatant attempt to provoke him. And it didn't end there. Even in the restroom, there seemed to be no respite. An inmate tried to mess with him, who, refusing to be humiliated, fought back fiercely. Sadly, this only earned him more punishment. Slowly, the horrifying truth began to dawn on Ray. All these incidents weren't random, but orchestrated by Jack, the head of the prison. Jack had created an environment where justice was a joke and cruelty was the norm. Ray found himself sinking deeper into a world where his basic rights were stripped away, enduring an unending cycle of violence and torture, orchestrated from the shadows by Jack. At lunchtime, Ray was sitting with David and a young guy, who David thought was too young to be in jail. But their chat got moved to the library because some other prisoners were making a fuss. There, David opened up about his past. About 15 years ago, he and his younger brother robbed a place and killed someone. At that time, David got caught, but his brother died during the crime. No one found the money they stole because David hid it really well. On another note, Ray was surprised and really happy when he found out that Kelly came to visit him. He didn't expect her to come, so seeing her really made his day. But Rico was there too, trying to get a rise out of Ray, trying to make him angry. Even though it was hard, he kept his cool, mainly because Kelly was there. Soon after, the young inmate found himself in trouble, circled by a bunch of other prisoners who just decided to pick on him all of a sudden. Just in time, Ray stepped in and stopped their nasty plan, with a bit of help from Williams, who showed up later to help keep things under control. All this tension was really getting to Ray, making him pretty annoyed. His frustration bubbled over when another guy came at him, and Ray ended up hitting the guy without holding back. Rico seemed to always show up when there was trouble with Ray. This time around, Rico brought Jack along with him. Jack had been paid off to hurt Ray, so he grabbed a stick to use it on him. At that time, he didn't hold back, beating Ray until he was really hurting. After what happened, Rico and his gang got together in a room. From their talk, It came out that the top warden wanted no part in their bad deeds and decided to step away to avoid getting deeper into the mess. On the other hand, Williams, who had always felt something was off about how Rico and his buddies were treating Ray, also wanted to keep his hands clean. As an honest senior warden, he told his coworkers not to follow Rico blindly. But despite the warning, they still met up with Jack, who was quietly cooking up another scheme. At that time, Rico and his pals were busy searching a prisoner's room, where they found and confiscated a knife. Later, while the prisoner was cleaning the bathrooms, he realized that Rico had used that knife to kill the top warden, making it look like the prisoner did it. Meanwhile, David went to see Ray. They had grown a bit distant lately, but now David had gotten to know him better and understood why he was there. Ray, known for his bravery in battle before, saw his time in prison as a way to make up for the death of a young innocent person he had caused in the past. On one side, Ray and David getting closer was starting to bug Mazen and his gang. They were not happy with Ray at all because of this friendship. Things took a nasty turn when Mazen and his guys jumped a guy from another group while he was showering, and they tried to pin it on Ray's group. But Ray had nothing to do with this, and he tried to clear up the false blame placed on them, pointing out that Mazen and his crew were the real culprits. In another spot, Kelly came back to visit again. But this time, Rico and his guys made her go through a really inappropriate check, forcing her to take off her clothes. This was all to mess with Ray's head, trying to break him down mentally. And Mazen was also in on this nasty plan with Rico and his gang. They were plotting to get rid of David and Kelly fast, pushing Ray to lose his cool and lash out at them. Because of all these terrible things happening, Ray was feeling completely crushed, spending his time all alone, unable to cope with the relentless stress. It felt like a nightmare that wouldn't end. When Williams finally got him out of there, he wanted to know what had happened. But Ray, having lost faith in everything, just couldn't bring himself to talk about it. He stayed quiet, not giving Williams any info on what went down. The following day, Ray seemed to be back on his feet, going about his usual activities in prison. But he soon found out that Mazen had tried to convince the young inmate to kill him. When the young guy didn't go through with it, Mazen chose to hurt himself. However, hearing that news made Ray furious. The following day, he was confronted by Mazen's group, who were demanding answers. Thanks to his military training, Ray was able to gauge their fighting skills pretty accurately. He knew he could take them down easily, and in no time, he had Mazen at a disadvantage. Ray was so angered that he contemplated killing Mazen right then, but David gave him a look that suggested not to. But suddenly, in a turn of events, David, who was embracing Ray, spun around to shield him, putting himself in the line of danger. Mazen, who had managed to get back up, was trying to stab Ray from behind, but David's quick reflexes protected him from the attack. After what had happened, Ray, still in handcuffs, was brought by Williams to chat with Jack in his room. During their face-to-face talk, Jack spilled the beans about why he did what he did and how much he got paid for it. But what Jack didn't know was that Ray was recording everything he said. This meant Williams could nab Jack easily, along with two of his buddies, pinning them as the main guys in the bribery scandal. Meanwhile, David was in a rough state because of his stab wound. He saw Ray as a reliable buddy and made him promise to take all the hidden stolen money and share some with his daughter. When the day came for Ray to walk free, Kelly was there to welcome him, having missed him terribly. Following David's wishes, they quickly took off, past David's message and the cash to his daughter. In the end, we see Williams welcoming a fresh face in the prison, and it was Harvey. This guy was actually the big boss who orchestrated the whole messy situation. And the film ends. The moral lesson from this film is always record your enemies when they confess to their evil plans, especially if you're in prison. You never know when it might come in handy.